Welcome everyone to my first English video. For those who don't know me, my name is Javier, also known as Sawyer, and well, perhaps I'm most famously known for being the player that took Chaos Demons to last year's World Championship of Warhammer Kill Team event. And well, since then, this year I've been playing mostly Hunter Clade, a team I can say have been able to master in a bit for Kill Team 2nd edition, for Kill Team 2021. And now here it's my review of Hunter Clade 2024. It's for this new edition to kind of like highlight what this team is good at, to address the slander that sets us in the bottom of the tier lists, and in general provide some tips and comments on how to play this team and how to improve your playing of this game. So first, Hunter Clade in 2nd edition, I think it was kind of like a sleeper gem. It had an 11 operative, mid-range team and had very good balance between good melee, above average melee, and shooting, with a very explosive plays due to the Control Edict GA2 ability, along with multi-kill potential in double fight for Rust Stalkers and a blast one weapon, but blast nevertheless, along with an interesting forward deployment with infiltrators. It was very usual to run a Vanguard heavy deployment of 7 Vanguards, 3 Rust Stalkers, and 1 infiltrator. You could also, take a 5-5 approach against elites or against teams that required an additional Rust Stalker melee. And I think what set us apart last edition was a very good dice manipulation across the board. We had access to rerolls of our Doctrinas and due to strategic ploys for our range operatives, and Rust Stalkers also had a balanced profile that, if you went with the melee doctrine, gave you 2 rerolls. So that, coupled with the fact that we were shooting on trees, made it very easy to also hit all your dice, and in overall, do not worry about missing some key shots. Also, we had a very good equipment with the Servo Skull that granted us effectively 1 mission action and allowed for very deadly Into the Dark plays, like effective 4 APL or effective 5 APL in the case of Rust Stalkers, with a double fight ploy. So this was Hunter Clade in 2nd edition, and in Hunter Clade the main Esquitari profile that we used was the Vanguards. They had a 2-4 rending profile for their shooting attack, and they had this rat aura that made enemies around them injured. Rangers, on the other hand, were very handicapped by having the heavy weapon rule, which allowed them to only perform a dash and shoot. So yeah, they were subpar, I would say, and not worth the hassle of bringing them to the and even so more when you had a limited 20 operative roster. However, now in 3rd edition, if I had to summarize what Hunter Clade is, I would go for this. We are a 10 operative team which boasts an exceptional shooting profile on our ranger operatives and is complemented by above average melee specialists and some utility pieces. We have the potential for a lot of piercing 1 bolters, and that is something that is very overlooked by, I think, many in the community, right? People are praising Inquisition for the ability to have up to 5 or 6 bolters. We could have up to 10 if we wanted. Of course, it's not might be the most optimal, but yeah, we could have up to 10 bolters piercing 1 weapons if we set ourselves to do so, while still having very good melee. So yeah, I don't think Hunter Clade is something you can to sleep about in this edition. However, changes to the faction rule now debuff either melee or shooting when trying to improve one or the other. So finding balance is key. I do think that we are now a bit more leaning towards better shooting than better melee, but yeah, it's up to us to to test and improve upon this. We still have explosiveness and multi-kill potential, but it's a bit more reliant on leader selection and more careful positioning. And what's very important now is that now all individual profiles can be fielded, and this is very exciting for to have a kill team that has a lot of different ways you can field your team. I think it's interesting and fun to go about and experiment and bring an ideal setup for your specific match. Let's go quickly through our faction rule, which is, I think, what we will be basing most of the team discussion about. And this is our Doctrina Imperative. So basically, each turn we're going to be able to pick one buff along with one debuff for our operatives to have. Back in 2nd edition, you only got the debuff the second time you picked a doctrine. Now it's every turn, and this is indeed a bit of a hassle. So we need to be more careful. And yeah, trying to find the balance is going to be the key. So first we have the Aggressor Doctrine, which grants us +1 movement and -1 save. So we're going to be saving at 5+ instead of 6+, instead of 4+. We're going to have the second one is the Protector Doctrine, which grants us ceaseless on shooting and -1 to hit on melee. So Rostalkers will be hitting at 4+, which is a serious handicap. We also have Conqueror, which is ceaseless on melee and -1 to hit on shooting, kind of like the reverse. We also have a Bulwark, which effectively grants us the ability to reroll all defense dice of one value, like we roll all 2s or all 1s when we are being shot, and in exchange for -1 movement, and Equalized, which is no buff and no debuff. This is our main, this is our faction rule, and I think the fact that we are getting debuffed every turn is what has set off many alarms, is what has set off many, other YouTubers and content creators to slander us and send us to the bottom of the tier list. But we're going to see that this is not that bad as it seems, because it can be, offset by a couple of different ways. So yeah, are we that bad, really? Like, for example, Can You Roll a Crit has us on letter C, almost down at the bottom. This was Squad Games also had us at C. This is Lazarus from Spaniard from Kill Team Mercenarios, also has us at C. Of course, I think the Spanish people do not know any other more letters, because this more seems like an E or something. But I don't think we're that bad, and I hope that after this video I can convince you that we are really not on the bottom of the tier list. And on the contrary, we actually do have a good game against elites, and that's something to keep in mind in this particular meta, in which, as you can see in most of the tier list, elites and marines are going to be very, very present, and we can have a good game against them. Who would have thought? And okay, let's first switch from my humble PowerPoint to review our data cards and ploys. Let's start with the data cards to see what has changed from the previous edition. So let's start with the leaders. Now I think all leaders are viable, are situational, and can be fielded, so building them can be worth it. Both Sicarian leaders have 11 wounds, and well, they are no longer hitting at 2+ per every other leader, but now every leader, both Sicarian and Esquitari, have this Canticle aura. So the Rusty leader has 5 attacks, 3+, 4/6 balance and rending. And it reads that whenever a friendly Rostalker is within 3, it can add an additional 1 damage to their first crit they inflict during this sequence. And this is great. All Rostalkers, including the leader, will be able to deal 4/7 damage. So if you land a crit, you're going to be able to 1-tap 7 wound operatives. Some hordes have, very heavy hitting melee operatives that have power weapons or similar melee profiles, and tapping them in one hit without them being able to, you know, land you a crit in return is very big. So I do think this aura is particularly effective for this. And well, they also have this rule with the, you know, wasteland stalkers, which is like the previous edition. We can retain 2 cover saves instead of 1, and now we can also make this a crit. So it's a good improvement, I think. Next is the Infiltrator Princeps. Infiltrators, as we're going to also review on the non-leader profile, now have, previously they had this Flechette Blaster, which was a 2-3 relentless weapon, and now we have it at 2-2, range 8, saturate and silent. So this allows infiltrators to move around in conceal and still apply some damage. Saturate means the opponent cannot retain cover saves, so that's good. Add them gift is ceaseless, and well, it's going to be a very I think good weapon to have. Additionally, the Infiltrator Princeps has this super conceal aura for other infiltrators within 3, and this is great. I think this is very good for having your leader go about tapping objectives and performing mission actions, and while being effectively safe. If this also, you know, trumps over Seek Light or the Seek ability. So if you want to kill this, you'll have to come brawl with this thing in melee, effectively, you know, eating up some power weapon hits, or go up to 2 to try to shot them. But again, killing an 11 wounds operative that saves at 4+, it's not an easy task. So having this leader forces, I think, your opponent to overextend, which you can use in your favor. Next, let's go with the Esquitari Rangers and Vanguard Alphas. So the Ranger Alpha now has this Canticle of Elimination. Whenever a Hunter Clade operative is within 3, a Hunter Clade Ranger, friendly operatives' ranged weapons have the Punishing Weapon rule. And Punishing is, if you retain a crit, you can change one success into one failed hit into a success. And additionally, all Rangers have Targeting Protocol. This is absolutely bonkers. It says, whenever this operative is shooting, if it hasn't moved during the activation, or if it's a counteraction, ranged weapons on its data card have Lethal 5+ weapon rule. And all Rangers have the Galvanic Rifle as a standard weapon. And the Galvanic Rifle is a 4 attacks bolter, 3 for damage, 3+, with heavy reposition only, meaning you can perform a normal move and shoot, and piercing crits 1. Previously, we also have piercing crits in the form of, you know, PX1, but now piercing crits 1 with the ability to move, and the fact that we can go up to lethal 5+ if the operative has not moved yet, it means we're going to be triggering this ability quite a lot, and it means pretty much piercing 1 bolters per water operative, and that is bonkers again. If you add on the fact that a lot of these maps are very, very open, I do think that these maps do not favor much melee operatives that, you know, go about and charge you and charge and pass or something. You're going to be having very lethal shooting, and the Ranger Alpha does help with this, right? With this punishing rule, because if you're having lethal 5 on your shooting, you'll have a crit and you'll turn your misses into successes, and you're going to be landing easily, you know, 3 or 4 hits with a crit, and yeah, that's going to be, you know, a lot of damage. Even against 14 wounds elites, that's going to hurt. Even if they have anti-piercing 1, you having your crits also helps to push damage through. Additionally, we retain for both alpha profiles the pistols, which were very good in last edition. We have an arc pistol, which is a range 8 piercing 1 stun weapon, so that's again very similar to last edition, but we now have range 8 and, well, shooting on 3+. And we also have the blast 1 the range 8 blast 1 phosphor pistol. It now has the severe rule, meaning if you don't have a crit, you will also upgrade 1 hit to a crit, and if you add this Canticle of Elimination for this ranger, it's going to be a very, you know, a very little shot in which you are going to be most likely hitting all 4 dices. So this is the Ranger Alpha, and now let's go with the Vanguard Alpha. Alphas retain this ability as per last edition, in which if you are within 2 of this friendly Hunter Clade operative, if you're within 2 of this Vanguard operative, you're going to worsen your hit stat of said weapon by 1. This isn't cumulative with being injured, but now this doesn't count as injury. So this is important when fighting against elites or any operatives that can ignore the injured condition. And well, the aura of this leader reads: whenever an enemy operative is within 3 of this operative, if it's under the effect of rat saturation, subtract 1 from the attack stat of that enemy operative's weapon. And that is huge, because you're going to be making them fight -1 to hit and -1 dice, and that can change for entirely the math when going especially into melee. Like say you manage to get a control edict with the Vanguard Alpha and a Rostalker, for example, and yeah, the Rostalker will have its 5 attacks, your opponent will have, I don't know, 3, and it's going to be hitting at 4+, 5+, and it's going to go very much in favor of the Rostalker. So pairing this with the Rostalker is very, very deadly. And yeah, these are our 4 leader operatives. I believe each of these do have a merit for particular matchups, so having them built up is going to be important for you. In the case of the Ranger Alpha, we'll go into more detail later. However, since this Canticle kind of like triggers when you are nearby your other Rangers, and you're mostly going to have your Rangers on the back line shooting with their galvanic rifles, you can, I think it will be best to also build this operative with the galvanic rifle in order to, to have it go with long range shooting instead of the pistols, which kind of like do require you to move across the board. Okay, these are our leaders. So now let's go and see, well, the Rostalkers are pretty much unchanged. They have their 4-5 balance profile and their 4-6 rending profile. And yeah, this is basically the same as last version, except, well, they are not called warriors instead of assassins. I think it's more to standardize with the basic version of operatives. And well, the Infiltrator now has, again, this 2-2 Fletchette Blaster, the Bolter with Ceaseless, and Power Weapon and Taser Goat. I think if you want an Infiltrator to tap the points, bring it with the Silent Weapon, and I would say go for the leader. But I think otherwise, the Bolter with Power Weapon is, I think it's the best way to go. In terms of Esquitari, we do have the Gunners. This is the Ranger one, which again has the targeting protocol. And in terms of Gunners, we have, again, as per last edition, the Arc Rifle, which is a piercing 1 stun shot, the Plasma, which now has the piercing 1 kind of like profile, and the Overcharge Hot Little 5+ piercing 1. And we also have the Arquebus. And now the Arquebus is actually playable. Who would have thought? Last edition, the Arquebus was heavy and cumbersome. It pretty much couldn't even move before taking a shot, and even when taking a shot, it was very, very, awkward. But now I do think it's going to see play. The Arquebus has 2 profiles. The mobile one, which allows you to perform a dash and has Devastating 2, Piercing 1, and the stationary profile, in which you don't move during your activation, which is the Devastating 3, Heavy, Piercing 1, Severe, at that is shooting at 2+. This will be your only guy who's shooting at 2+ at the Ceaseless, and you have 4 hits guaranteed. And Severe and Devastating 3 also mean that this thing has I was mistaken. But yeah, if you take this in, into the dark, you can also do very nasty things with this operative, because the heavy rule doesn't do anything against guard or the guard action. You could potentially take this arquebus to make a move dash guard play, and take your shot within 2 of your opponent and blast them at the face with a 2+ stationary shot. And severe means that, again, if you don't land a crit, you upgrade 1 hit to a crit, so it's pretty much devastating 3 wounds, 3 mortal wounds guaranteed. In terms of the gunners, again, losing AP2 on the plasma hurts, but I think everyone is on the same boat as this. And I do think Rangers should go with a Ranger in order to benefit the most from targeting protocol, but the plasma can be fielded on a Vanguard, because Vanguards, since we can get Lethal 5 natively, so to speak, we can get a bit more benefit of the Rat Saturation aura if we go with a plasma gunner. And okay, let's go with the Surveyor and Dictac, which are our kind of like support pieces. The Dictac is our comms that has the support ability to pass 1 APL to a fellow operative. That isn't changed, but the Surveyor, instead of being an obscurity for 1 operative of our own, now grants a 3-inch aura. And well, let's read this. First, we gotta select an enemy operative visible to this operative. In previous edition, you could pick anyone on the map anywhere. And until the end of the turning point, friendly operatives within 3 have Seek Light against that operative, and that enemy operative cannot be obscured. And this is huge, because into the dark, everyone's going to be hiding in light cover, for example, if they want to move across the board, and you just have the Surveyor lying about, you spot the opponent, and you rain hellfire upon them. So it's very, very good, and it's very, very deadly. And again, these still have the basic Ranger profile of Bolter with piercing crits. So if you have this as Rangers and they take a shot and they have not moved, it's still going to be painful for your opponent. And it just adapts. It just adds up in the sense of you're stacking more piercing crits weapons, and yeah, it's going to overwhelm your opponents. Also worth noting is that these 2 operatives are kind of like, their abilities are lived support, and they can benefit from this comms device, I think it was called, the equipment, that increases the range if you would opt to pick them, right? So yeah. The basic Ranger, Ranger Warrior, and the final one to review, because we've picked pretty much everyone else, is the Vanguard Warrior. The Vanguard Warrior, all Vanguards have this Rat Saturation, and the Warrior still has its 2-4 rending profile. Vanguards do lose a lot on not having the ability to improve the damage of their basic shot. In past editions, you could pick an equipment to upgrade this to a 3-4 with rending, and was a bit more, deadly. But now at 2-4, I think in overall for shooting, the Ranger profile is a bit better, definitely. But I think Vanguards have their use, especially because killing them is going to be much more hard. Not only because now even Marines have to go through the -1 to hit, but if you mix this with other ploys and that reduce damage, you're going to need 3 hits to effectively kill 1 lowly Vanguard Shock Trooper. So yeah, I do think they have merit, but in terms of sheer firepower, now Rangers are a bit step forward. These are our data cards. Let's go now to analyze our ploys, because they are going to also dictate how we play, right? First is, as was being mentioned, the debilitating irradiation ploy that reads that whenever someone is fighting, retaliating, or shooting against a Vanguard operative, if that enemy operative is under the effects of Rat Saturation, subtract 1 from the normal damage stat. This is great to improve the survivability of your operatives, but it's worth noting that this doesn't affect allies that are not vanguards. So if you're near, I don't know, a Rostocker, if you've charged with Rostocker and a friendly vanguard, this doesn't apply to the friendly Rostocker. So it's only for vanguards. So it's a bit more limited than it appears in the first sight. Then we have the Scouting Protocols ploy, which is for Rangers. It reads that friendly Hunter Clade Ranger operatives that have a conceal order and are more than 6 away from enemy operatives can immediately perform a free dash in the order of your choice. And this cannot be used in the first turning point because otherwise it would be a bit too strong. And this is also very good for specializing into the dark, or when the terrain allows it, to give your Rangers an extra impulse, because this effectively allows them to dash, shoot, and dash, move, and shoot, in increasing their threat range by 9 inches if you have the initiative, or you can land them safely in the map with that dash. This is also incredibly good for the arquebus, because now you can make pre-turning point dash. You activate them, dash again for an effective 6-inch movement, and shoot whoever you can. So this is good, but sadly it is a bit more limited by the fact that you need to be in conceal. Like turning point 1, you're always going to move about and try to get the best spot to have clear shooting for turning point 2. But for turning point 3, you're most likely going to be on engage. So this is no longer going to be something you can rely on. I would like in the future if this would be conceal order and or more than 6 from enemy operatives. I think that will be a bit more useful really, because as it's been written, I think it only works on turning point 2, and very situationally in turning points 3 or 4. Aside from that, we have the ploys for infiltrators, infiltrators and Rostockers, which are unchanged from previous edition. Infiltrators get neurostatic interference, which grants them an aura within 6, which prevents enemy operatives from rerolling dice when shooting, fighting, or retaliating. So again, very strong to deny, for example, enemies with bad stats but good dice manipulation. This kind of cancels them out. This is very good against hordes like Inquisition, like Wyrmblade, and Pathfinder, for example. People that usually shoot or fight at 4+ are going to be very handicapped by this. And also Accelerant Agents, which grants Rostockers the ability to fight twice per turn, and one of those fights can be for free. This is huge because this gives them effective 3 APL. They can charge, fight for free, and now use a grenade, throw a smoke, tap the point, you name it. This is very flexible, and it's what I think allows this team to push forward and not be definitely not be on the bottom of the tier list. So this is our strategic ploys. Let's go with our Firefight ploys. We have again 4 as per standard. First is Control Edict. This is our GA2 from last edition, but now it's a Firefight ploy that costs 1 APL and now can only be done between a leader operative and another operative. When selecting this ploy, you cannot select more than 1 Sicarian, so no longer double Rostocker activation, and so now it's going to be a Skitari and a Sicarian. This is a bit of a downgrade because previously we did it for free and we didn't need to use the leader for that activation, but it's still there and it can still be useful, especially on Into the Dark for one guy goes, opens the door, and the other one fires. That can also be huge. We also have a scrap code overload, which is a new one that's only usable for infiltrators. It reads: when you use this ploy, When you use exploit when an infiltrate with an infiltrator operative, or when an enemy operative within 3 of that infiltrator will perform the pickup marker or a mission action, excluding operate hatch, until the start of the friendly operative's next activation, whenever determining control of a marker, treat the APL stat of enemy operatives that contest it as 1 lower if at least one of those enemy operatives is within 3 of that friendly infiltrator. This is an APL change, so so any changes are cumulative, and this can change control of a marker before performing the action, and this is key. There may be some scenarios in which your opponent, an elite opponent, a marine opponent, can move, dash, and try to tap the point in which you have an infiltrator. Well, you activate this, and they no longer can. They'll have to deal with the infiltrator first before attempting to tap the point, and if they they reach it with a move and dash, then well, they are screwed. Additionally, you can pass one APL to your infiltrator. They can, if they now have more APL than your opponent, they can tap the point against a marine, or what they'll need an APL against an APL 2 enemy operative. And yeah, this helps you push through the APL requirements in order to secure mission objectives, and is in overall I think more centered if you're going to be playing the crit up to its fullest, which with infiltrators is not really a bad idea. Then we have command override, which is the same from previous edition. You can activate, when you activate a friendly operative, you can pay 1 CP and switch its active doctrine. And this is great, I think, mainly for Rust Stalkers, right? If you're going with the shooting doctrine that worsens your Rust Stalker's fight abilities, you pay your CP, and your Rust Stalker now has the melee doctrine and goes with ceaseless and fighting at 3+. So this is going to be, I think, your most used ploy, definitely. Along with Hunter Clade. And finally, we have the Omniscience Imperative. This is very, very fun. Let me read it. It reads: use this Firefight ploy during a friendly Hunter Clade operative's activation. It says during. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. Inflict D3 +1 damage on that operative. Until the ready step of the next strategy phase, that operative has an additional rule determined by its current Doctrina Imperative, as follows. First, Protector. This is the ranged doctrine. These operatives' ranged weapons have the Severe Weapon rule. Now, Conquerors, the melee one. Whenever this operative is fighting, after resolving your first attack dice during that sequence, you can immediately resolve another one, meaning you can hit twice before your opponent. Third, Bulwark. Improve this operative's save stat by 1. In addition, whenever an operative is shooting this operative, you can collect and roll an additional defense dice. Fourth, Aggressor. You can ignore the first vertical distance of 2. This operative moves during 1 climb, and neutral, of course, none. Note that this ploy can be used. You can use this ploy after rolling attack or defense dice for this operative, meaning you can activate this after you have seen what dice you have, or before or after retaining or rerolling those dice. This is very, very flexible, and I think the most important ones are these two: Conqueror and Bulwark. Conqueror is going to be, I think, the most used one, because this effectively allows you to push 12 damage if you have, a basic Rust Stalker with 2 crits off of rending. You can push through 12 damage before being hit back, and that kills an orc. You can charge an orc, see if you land a crit, activate your Conqueror, take some damage, which hopefully is less than 4, and you can kill them and take no damage in return, and be ready to fight again, and or in general stay alive. Sorry. And this is also useful against 8 or 9 wound operatives that are melee specialists, like for example Felgor Ravagers, or even even against torments from Chaos Cult, you can push too much damage, I think, and not be hit in return at all. And yeah, this just allows you to go about and delete enemy operatives as very easily. Especially useful against power weapons that will usually push through a crit against you and hinder your ability to fight twice. And like, I don't know, take mandrakes. This completely demolishes them. Even if they fight first, assuming you don't take max damage from here, you can they pass through one hit and you hit them twice and they're gone, and you can fight against the second one, and yeah, you are going to be deleting enemy melee operatives with this with ease. And also worth noting is that you can also use these hits to parry instead of hitting. Like, I don't know, let's assume you go against an enemy Phobos with 12 wounds and they land only 2 hits and you land 5 hits. You can use your first 2 normal ones to parry them and hit them for the additional 3 dice and push through 12 damage, and that can also be something to take into consideration. Now for the second one, which is Bulwark, you can improve this operative save stat by 1, so you're going to be defending at 3+, and you're going to be able to roll 1 additional dice, so 4 dice in total. This is, again, bonkers. I have used this one to survive a shot against my leader that was in cover. I also, activated the anti-piercing one equipment that we have. You roll 4 dice at 3+, and yeah, you're alive. It's going to be very easy to survive with this, and yeah, don't sleep on the bulwark one. I think it's very, very good. The protector doesn't seem to be that effective, but if you need to finally push through some damage, I think might be worth it. But overall, I think with your shots as they are, it's okay. And the aggressor can be situational to be able to reach something, especially if they have blocked it with some equipment or like the razor wire, for example. But I do believe that Conqueror and Bulwark are going to be the ones that we use the most. Okay, so that's it for our ploys. Again, very interesting ones. Sadly, since most of these are going to be limited a bit, to affect only your for example, the debilitating radiation only works against vanguards, the scouting protocols against rangers. You're not going to be using them much, you're not going to be depending on this each turn. You're going to mostly be picking accelerant agents to have free APL, and well, if it's needed, the neurostatic interference most of the turns. But yeah, you'll have plenty of CP to spare for Control Edict, Omniscience Imperative, and Command Override if it's needed. And okay, let's return to our humble PowerPoint. So now let's go with operative selection, which is a very ample topic that we can discuss very in depth. You can bring 10 operatives, which is leader plus 9 more. You cannot take more than 6 Sicarian and Gunner operatives combined. Each of your gunners must have a different weapon profile, and your team cannot contain more than 5 Sicarians in total. This allows for several viable combinations which can be fielded according to the match. But I think a very important question is what leader to bring and when to bring them each. Again, this is my small summary of when you could, when it could be more convenient to bring. The Rostocker Princeps, when you want to, or you can benefit from one tapping 7 wound operatives and when extra melee power is needed. I think if you go heavy into melee with these guys, with the Rostockers, yeah, you bring leader plus other 5 Rostockers, or well, 4 Rostockers, and 4 Rostockers to not be over the maximum of 5, including the leader. So yeah, if you want to very heavy hitting melee, you bring this guy. The Infiltrator Princeps, you bring this when aiming to play the crit up on open boards, and even also on Into the Dark. It's, again, the Super Conceal is very, very useful, and it can go for, if you want to play the crit up and have your primary be crit up, you can definitely go for this. You can also, well, the Vanguard Alpha, I think it's most versatile of them all. And you bring the alpha when you plan to move forward with the leader to set up a control edict in the midboard with the Rostocker to also have the Rostocker benefit from the aura. And you bring the Ranger Alpha when you want to kite enemy operatives, or well, against also if you want to blast them, because the Ranger Alpha I think has the most powerful blast. But yeah, the difference between the Vanguard Alpha and the Ranger Alpha is that the aura benefits friendly Rangers, and Rangers again are going to be most likely in your backline, back in your near your home objective, near your deployment zone. And due to the Ranger Alpha's weapons being 8-inch range, you're going to want to have the Ranger up in the midboard. And if you take both the scenarios of Rangers of these Alphas going to the midboard, I think the Vanguard Alpha trumps, because the Rod Saturation Aura is going to be more useful than the Punishing Aura, because you're most likely not going to have friendly Rangers up there, and you shouldn't have friendly Rangers up there unless you're making some very specific plays. So yeah, I also have made some special kind of like deployment combinations along with their code names that you can take, and we can discuss this more in depth. Like, for example, I think a standard take holes, cover all corners approach is to bring your Vanguard Alpha either with the AP1 gun or the blast weapon if it's against a horde, for example, a Vanguard Plasma and a Ranger Arc Gunner, your Esquitari suit of Surveyor, Dig Tag plus Warrior, Rangers, and 3 Rostockers plus 1 Infiltrator. I think this is the standard deployment. You also have the melee Ling deployment, which is the Rostocker typo there, your Rostocker Princeps, the Vanguard Plasma plus Ranger Arc, all Skitari Warriors, and 4 Rostockers. This is the most heavy, melee Ling you can have. Additionally, well, if you would also like, you can also bring an Alpha, 5 Rostockers, and only 1 Gunner, and yeah, that will give you a bit more push through, a bit more of a melee profile, because Vanguard's also fighting at 4+ with a 4/5 weapon, which isn't that bad if they have that weapon equipped. But yeah, this is the more Sicarian focused melee Ling. You also have the Grid Up deployment, which is the Infiltrator Princeps with Vanguard Plasma, Ranger Arc, 3 Rostockers plus 1 Infiltrator, which also could be just 4 Rostockers and bring some Vanguards if needed. You also have the anti-melee full Vanguard deployment of 2 Rostockers plus 2 Infiltrators to get the most out of the of the 6-inch bubble of no rerolls, and good luck trying to kill a Vanguard with damage reductions and no rerolls. Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to you'll be able to unless you're really spiking on those dice. And you also have the full range deployment of Vanguard Ranger plus 3 Gunners and only 3 Sicarians between 2 Rostockers and 1 Infiltrator, which this is 3, 1, 3, yeah. This is effectively 7, piercing 1 guns if you want to. Again, if you want, you can not take the Infiltrator, take another Warrior, and that's going to be an 8 piercing 1, effective piercing 1 weapons that I think every other faction should be afraid of. Yeah, these are, some ideas that I've been tinkered with. I've so far been surprised very gladly by the Infiltrator Princeps going around and tapping the point. In this edition, especially because we're going to see the maps in a bit. In this edition, I think some opponents are not going to be wanting to play the grid up at all. And if you take advantage of that, you go about being safe while having super concealed, you can get some victory points off and end up winning the match. So I'm going to be testing the Infiltrator Princeps a bit more. Let's go quickly through equipment. Let's go back to the PDF for this. So we have our 4 faction equipment, which is Rat Bombardment, Refractor Field, Redundancy Systems, and Extremis Mindlink. Rat Bombardment is the worst of them all. It reads that you can pretty much have a stun grenade, an improved stun grenade against your enemy deployment or an objective marker, and I don't think, because it's a, it's a 50-50 dice ultimately, I don't think it's as worth it as the other ones. It can be situationally good, to stun several enemy operatives if you're lucky, but I will stick with the rest. Redundancy system gives you a heal, an improved heal for any operative of D3 plus 2 ones as long as they are not in control range of enemy operatives. So you cannot be, you cannot be in melee when activating this equipment. Nevertheless, it's good, but the ones I will pick every single game are Refractor Field and Extremist Mindlink. Extremist Mindlink is a free control edict Firefight ploy that allows you to interweave activations, so you can perform actions simultaneously, so to speak. You can activate first, your Ranger Alpha to charge, you then activate the Rostocker to charge and fight, tap the point, and then you activate the Alpha to throw a smoke grenade or take an AP one shot, for example. And yeah, this is very, very powerful, very, very good. Having it for free also frees up your CP, so I think this is something we take every game. Additionally, we have Refractor Field. It reads that once per turning point, we basically, when we are being shot at, we can worsen the piercing weapon rule by 1 if it had, so we can roll 3 dice, and therefore, piercing 1 will be ignored. So yeah, the ones that I recommend taking most of the time are this free control edict plus free once per turn anti-piercing 1. And the situational ones are, of course, barricades, ladders, the healing one, and explosive grenades plus the smoke grenades. Barricades and ladders, of course, depend on the map. I think there are some maps that you can go without much of a hassle without barricades, now that you have 10-inch movement, and especially if you have super conceal, you can be more free with that. Ladders are very helpful to reach vantage point for your rangers, so worth considering it. Healing, it's a redundancy system, so to speak, so it's very good, and since it's once per turn, it's very reliable, and it can get you out of being injured, which is, I think, the most important thing, to be able to move freely and not fight with a worsened hit stat. And the grenades are also incredibly good, because now Rostockers can use grenades. Since the first fight is free for them, they can charge, fight, and throw a smoke grenade to be, safe from enemy shooting, or throw a crack grenade at your opponent. Might be a bit worse because it's a crack grenade at force, but if you have picked up the doctrine, it will have ceaseless. So hey, I think that's great. And yeah, now for regarding the TAC ops, the ones I recommend the most are Confirm Kill and Champion. The ones that are close but not that great are Storm Objectives and Plan Beacon. And finally, Recover Item and Overrun, those I will not pick because they do require, I think, too much commitment from you and can be very, very easily denied. Confirm Kill is great when you're planning to move across the board. Doesn't require an extra APL investment, but it's easier to deny. You just have to kill an enemy and they drop a token, and you need to have an operative controlling that token by the end of the turn without your opponent also being in control range of that token. Great with Rostockers, very free, but also easy to deny with just a charge. They charge you on pass and no longer have that point for you. Champion is great because it's a strategic gambit, and it requires you to pick one operative, and if that operative kills 2 enemy operatives, you earn 1 BP for the first and 1 BP for the second one. And if it's an elite opponent, a marine, you get 2 out of the bat. This is very good, very flexible, because it's your gambit, and if you have a good Rostocker charge, you pick that Rostocker as the operative, you charge, you heal, and it's free. pretty much free because it will also you're going to be wanting to kill anyway for your kill up. If you don't have the initiative, you can also pick one of your gunners in the back line that will have a clear shot against some objective markers, and you time your activation so that champion has the killing blow, and yeah, you also score a score from there. And I do think if you're going for champion, you should pick at least 4 stalkers to have more chances to do so. And remember, you can now again charge, fight, shoot, and yeah, great for those plays. Storm objectives requires you to control objective markers that your opponent previously controlled at the start of that friendly activation, or control one that's on your enemy's territory. This is great if your opponent is playing the mission because there's going to be a lot of back and forth in the control of that objective marker, but sadly if your opponent doesn't want to play that and stays off the objectives, you're going to require to push a bit deep into enemy territory, and it's not going to be that great, and will be also easier to deny, might just leave your operative exposed, so not that great. And plant beacon, I think it's very situational, very situational and very map dependent. Especially, I think it works best if you're not picking up grenades, but the thing is, it can be very taxing for your APL, especially in turning points 3 and 4. What you can do with this is charge, fight, plant a beacon, especially on your opponent's territory, but since it requires to be in your opponent's territory and one in yours, it's very taxing because that's 2 APL. And turning point 2, it's going to be easy, but on turning points 3 and 4, you also want to maximize your killing potential, and you'll want to be shooting your enemy to score your crit up, right? Because your kill up, because you earn points for killing. So this might be too taxing for your overall APL and might not be that good. Something that can help here is, of course, a scouting protocol, because with that you can move beyond the 6 inches of your previous beacon, and take it from there and plant the beacon and shoot, for example. But again, I think it's a bit more situational. I'd go for confirm kill and champion if possible. And finally, I think this video is going to be about we're nearing the hour-long mark, but some deployment tips for players getting into the faction. Let's go to TTS to illustrate this point. First, when picking up your groups for deployment, I would recommend picking up your Sicarians first in one group and deploying this one first. The other one will have your Dictac, your leader, and your warrior if you're going for this sort of deployment. And I do recommend setting up your surveyor last, because if you can see now in these Into the Dark maps, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for this surveyor to trigger off Sick Light, because for example in this room or even here, if an opponent were to set up a sniper over there or whatever, you cannot really protect this room with heavy cover. If you have your surveyor there marking an enemy operative, your friendly ones are going to be able to rain hellfire down to that enemy operative that's behind a light barricade. So having this go last is going to have a much bigger impact along with your gunners. And also a small recommendation will be to leave this surveyor in a spot in which it can actually threaten both rooms, or at least 2 rooms. For example, in this, if you can set it here, of course you can open up here and mark someone, but this is going to be the only room that's going to be threatened. From here you can threaten both here with 6-inch or 7 movement, and of course here in case they were trying to camp this operative away from the charge range of this door. So leaving them in a spot in which you can target 2 rooms is going to be also helpful. And also, I do like Into the Dark for surprise leader charges. Let me picture this example for you. Let's pick up our leader with phosphor. I like doing this back in Kill Team 2. I think it allows us to have a very strong opening, but it was difficult to pull off because it left you needed to have your ranger on engage on your deployment in turning point 1 in order to pull this off. Now, however, everyone is on conceal, and something you can do is have an effective, 13-inch move range. That's a lot, but here's the play. You of course take the place a barricade to have your leader be somewhat covered. This barricade can be within 3 inches of your deployment. You can theoretically be there, something like that. So you take the scouting option, and now this guy is going to have cover from here, and most likely, even if this door was going to be open, you're going to be able to shoot, and have cover from a shot. You have your dictac come here, pass 1 APL. Then you do a GA2 between your Rostocker or any other operative and your leader. Rostocker moves up 6, 7. It's going to be within 1 inch of the door to open it up, and now your leader has a free 10-inch move plus shoot from the extra APL. Of course, the door is accessible now, so you can only move up to 9 if you have the +1 movement. But from here, assuming this door were going to be open, you're going to be able to have a free shot down here. Of course, if we could be within 2, that's going to be a bit more sweet. If we somehow can pull it off, we'll pull this off in a straight line, like in a straight like this. Maybe, just maybe, we somehow could. No, a bit too greedy, right? It's going to be within 2 of this to blast something here, but yeah, you're going to be very deep on turning point 1, and if there is a free shot here, because I don't know, there wasn't a miniature that's no longer in cover because it was at this side of the door or something, take a shot here. If it's a blast shot, yeah, take out the backline, etc. So yeah, do not miss out on the kill potential of your operatives. It can be your leader, it can be your plasma if you want to, go up to back to their backlines to, cause some damage and force them to have to respond to that movement. But yeah, you can also throw a grenade. Plenty of options that you cannot overlook. And okay, we also talked about the arquebus, right? And because lots of these rooms are really shooting galleries, you can safely set up your arquebus something like this to have vision of the room. And yeah, you can spend your activations opening up the door and shooting, or shooting and closing the door if you want to. And yeah, it's going to be a very nasty threat over here, right? Set up some obstacles over here, so charging it's going to be a bit more difficult. And if your plan is to only have this guy block this room, having an arquebus instead of an arc gunner is going to be objectively a better option. Of course, you're not going to be able to move that much, but again, you can have it as a a stationary weapons platform, and everything is going to be good. Just let me switch up some maps to illustrate this point. As people are commenting on Discords and stuff, these maps are shooting galleries, really. Take this one for example. You're going to be able to shoot here. It's going to be very open. If you have your where is your nice surveyor? Where did it go? Surveyor here. Again, you can move it and threaten barricades on here and here, and no way to take cover. So again, having a lot of piercing crits go through your opponents is going to be sweet. Finally, also in these maps, take into consideration that while your opponents will have the sick light problem, you are going to be able to ignore that if you choose to go with your princeps, with your infiltrator princeps. Set up a barricade here, for example. This guy can move dash over here if so needed to, and I don't know, next turn you can start in conceal, tap the point, and with 8 inches is going to be able to, if some guy was on guard here or something, you can shoot hit with your silent weapon and in overall be a nuisance for this operative, right? They're going to need to charge, and charging over there is not going to be possible because of accessible. You'll need to have a pit stop over here with a barricade that again can be punished by your surveyor. And yeah, this is an excellent spot in which this guy can just move and pivot if he so were needed, like can get his butt over here or something, and also next turn threatening up this room. You can also charge because you have a power weapon, and even so a charge of 6 is going to be interesting one if you also kind of like make it so you can move it like here, make it a charge about here and threaten whatever is here. I think the Princeps is nasty, and I want to experiment a bit more with it deployed. Only having it one can be good because also the no reroll aura, and other good thing is that it forces your opponent to overcommit. You're going to have to move within 2 to shoot this guy or try to melee it out, and again trying to take an 11 wound operative with a 4+ save and a power weapon without rerolls nearby, it's going to be very, very hard. So yeah, worth taking into consideration. Also, of course, a bit more basic one is that Ruststalkers can move, dash, and hatchway fight if they so want to. Assuming your enemy operative opened up this door and made a 9-inch. Can you get over there with 9 inches? I don't know if you can. No, right? But yeah, assuming your opponent was to end up a move here for some reason. On turning point 1, you can move, dash, and if this door were open, you can also fight, and you can do so on conceal, because fighting on conceal is you don't require to be an engaged to fight and not to hatchway fight. So that's also going to be something to consider. And Into the Dark, I think we are very strong in Into the Dark, and Ruststalkers open up a lot of possibilities between open door fight charge, open door fight shoot, or something, right? Yeah, I think now that I think about it, that's a really also sweet spot for your infiltrator, right? If you somehow were to have 3 APL, you can on conceal, open up the door, fight, and shoot on conceal whatever it's over here and engage. And again, lots of plays to consider. Finally, before we finish, let me illustrate some other points. First, as you can see, most of the maps are really open, and in these very open maps, I think at least for turning point 2, if you have your warrior here finish its turn here with this thing, it can next turn open the door and shoot at anything that has gone on engage on this particular room. And again, if you're shooting without having started, your activation is going to have lethal 5+, and that's very easy to land a crit. Let's see, let's try this. Okay, there goes a crit. We have ceaseless, everything goes P1. Let's go again. Let's see how much times I can trigger. Okay, ceaseless. Okay, that's 3 hits, 2 hits on the crit. Final one. Let's go. There goes a crit, 2 crits, ceaseless. Okay, 2 crits and 1 hit. That's your basic warrior operative with P1 on most shots that you take on Into the Dark. Well, not Into the Dark, I mean in open maps, in everywhere, because in these maps, I think in general, both Volcus, Into the Dark, and Beta Decima, these maps are going to be very open, and if you position your rangers adequately, you're going to be able to shoot and rain down fire with piercing 1. And okay, I know legionaries and War Coven have ways to ignore that, but even this is going to be very hard to block even for an elite. Let's say they roll, and if they roll an average, well, no, they will be dead from there, I think. If just they roll, their average, they're not going to be able to block this thing, and they're going to be able to take damage. And if we can, have them go down to 10 wounds, then your Ruststalker can now charge and kill them easily with crit and a hit. and you're very good to go. So yeah, I mean, just take a look at the maps, and Rangers are going to be very, very deadly in this. And aside from this, some other thing that I wanted to also mention is that I do like the idea of the GA2 between the Ranger, the Vanguard Alpha and the Rostalker Warrior more than anything. Mostly, I like the idea of being able to charge, and now your this guy has -1 dice, and is going to fight at 4+. This is the the stats from last edition. So then your Rostalker charges, and it, let's say it ends up somewhere like here, I think. Yeah, it could be. It opens up a lot of possibilities, and of course, it increases your chances of deleting an enemy marine in one shot. And I mean, even you will even if you have 3 APL or something, you can get within 2, land a piercing one shot. Oh no, let's roll dice just for the sake of it. Let's roll. Okay, well, that was a very good shot. Okay, that's a lot of damage from your piercing one against a marine. Then your guy comes in, kills it off, scores you champion, scores you confirm kill or something, and now you can draw a smoke here, keeping both of you. Oh, this was a ladder. You can draw your smoke here, keeping both of these operatives safe. You can tap the point. Even better if you had 3 APL with this guy. You can now shoot your. Or well, no, you can tap. If you're already shot, you can now If you haven't shot yet, you now have a very little shot. You can now tap the point. You can do a lot of things between a Rostalker and a Vanguard. And I do think alphas are a bit better, and I like that they still have 4-5 melee profile to hinder whatever it is that it's coming their way in a melee. I do like this sequence a lot, sadly, because now the control edict needs to have the leader as part of this GA2. It's only most likely be able to be used once per turn. So yeah, like this play is possible when you have your alpha here, and again your backline might be around here. You're going to want to have your arquebus like here, your gunners in pretty much near your deployment, right? So if you want to do this thing with a Vanguard, having it have a pistol with 8-inch range is going to be better, so having the Vanguard will be the preferred choice. If it's the Ranger, you're most likely not going to be able to benefit most from its ability. Its ability works better if it's standing here in the backline with a galvanic rifle and giving punishing to all shots you take. Like if your leader was here, you can perhaps make a GA2 move to I don't know, open door, fire, the other guy fires and closes the door, and you are suddenly safe, something like that, which is possible because you have these unwind activations and you cover yourself for blast and you kill whatever it's engaged in this on this room. So yeah, the Ranger is better if you're planning to stay on the backline. The Alpha is better if you plan to use this guy to charge. Alternatively, of course, you can have a Vanguard Warrior, your Shock Trooper, to do these things, to charge here and have the Rostalker come. But I do prefer the Vanguard Alpha because of the gun is really good. It's an extra AP1 gun. With stun, very reliable, and if you give this guy 1+1 APL, you can do very nasty things with effective 2 APL plays, and yeah, that's really good. And to illustrate the point with the Rangers more, let's take a look at Volkus. Let's go with Volkus map. Well, let's go with any map, I think. Shooting lanes on these maps are going to be also deadly. For example, this Vantage can rain down fire from here, even here, if you somehow can, you know, delete obscurity if you want to, and have many, you know, pit stops for a safe turning one move up to here, right? You can end up turning point one with your where it says warrior here on conceal if you have ladders, if you move and dash. And in overall, you are very good positioned to for a turning point 2 in which you are most likely going to shoot without moving, and you can punish enemy advances if, you know, you have a sorcerer or no, like a marine or something advancing up to here. You can totally punish this thing from here, take your shot, and go down to safely, or a bit more safely, right? And yeah, a lot of chances to trigger up your 5+, little 5+. That in turns, well, okay, finally one roll without. Okay, well, never mind. And without a piercing one, and yeah, it will increase the lethality of your shooting a lot. So yeah, I do think in this edition Rangers are a bit better. Well, not a bit better. I think they are the best choice in between the Esquitari variants. And I also do think that we are now going to be leaning a bit more again in terms of shooting. I think the 6-4 with 3 Stalkers and Infiltrator is perfect, because this allows us really to get our more gunners, and you know, this warrior is no longer nothing to scoff at. Take this shot. Of course, it's an outlier, but your opponent will have 2 dice to defend, so that's going to be at the bare minimum, you know, 6 damage in case he can parry the crit, and 7 damage, and that's, you know, that brings down elites to half HP. They now are vulnerable to a similar shot, and now also vulnerable to a charge. This guy has 7 HP. It can now be deleted by a Ruststalker. Just, you know, I think most Ruststalkers, even at 4, well, not this one, but even at, you know, if this was, you know, normal Ruststalker charge with Conqueror Doctrine, then yeah, you kill your enemy operative, that's your marine enemy operative that's down to half HP, or even if it's down to, you know, 10 wounds, it puts them at the mercy of 1 crit and well, 1 crit and 1 hit. Let's see if I can if you can hit that 6 with the ceaseless. Nope. Well, it will still die. You'll take damage, but it will still die. So yeah, I think in overall, these maps and this edition are going to be favoring a bit more ranged firepower, and Hunter Clade is in an excellent position right now to take on the meta, on a meta filled up with Warp Coven, with Legionaries. Something to consider when doing this thing in which you stack up your gunners is that let's put up a different gunner. Where is it? Let's have 2 warriors here. Something to consider up is that you're going to want to, let's say, start the turning point kind of like here, having vision of the map. Thing is, if you go to engage, you take your shot, you're also going to want to withdraw from view, because if not, you know, your opponent can retaliate with a blast, and yeah, it's going to, if you stack up too much of your guys on this vantage to be gunners and have your sniper's nest, and your opponent still has blast weapons, you're going to be in risk of getting a lot of your guys being caught up. Well, if you somehow take off the enemy first, the enemy blast weapons first, then yeah, you can do this safely and stay there and camp this point, because getting to climb over here is going to be tricky. But yeah, nevertheless, be wary to not eat up blast attacks by stacking your rangers too much together. So I think this covers most of what I wanted to share in here. Feel free to join on the discussions on the Discord forums. We have to, you know, keep iterating, keep sharing experience about the team, and well, stick it up to those tier lists that have us in C or D rank. Well, thank you all for joining me for this video. Be seeing you around.